Kingsdale Foundation School Performing Arts Department presents Love Letter to London, an audio story with songs about our city. With words by Craig Taylor and inspired by songs. Featuring songs by Eddie Grant, Amy Winehouse, the Kinks, Lily Allen, Jam, Ralph McTell, Duffy and The Clash. Part 1. Take your seats. This evening's performance is about to begin. It's raining outside a school in West London. Teachers are speaking to parents at the school gates as the children drift out. The screens on their phones start to glow. Phones of all sizes are returning to life. I asked the children what they think a Londoner, or anyone coming from somewhere else to live here, needs to know to live in this city.
Learn how to read the tube map. Definite.
Yeah, that's a good one. Actually, there's a lot of things. I want them to be clever on that. Like, if they come to London, they'd probably be scared of London because of all the social media things you hear. You hear like, you come to London, you're gonna get stabbed. If you see a black person on the street, if he's got his hood up, you've got to be running and that. Whereas, because we actually live here, we know how it is, so we're not scared and we're not wary all the time. Obviously, it's good to be wary sometimes because anything can happen at any point in time. And we're not majorly scared. I'm only scared that if somebody lives outside London and comes in, they're not going to be streetwise. They're going to think that everything's magical out there. Like, you can run around and everything's fine and that. But it won't be. I think it's important to be streetwise.
Exactly. Like how to cross the road, basically properly. It's so busy and you see how many people get run over and killed. It's just simple things. Like, don't worry about learning how to do algebra. Learn how to cross the road because you're going to need that more than you're going to need algebra in life.
Yeah, like keeping your valuables to yourself and be aware. London does teach you how to be aware of things.
Don't stare at people. If you see something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, most people's first reaction is to stare at it and that. Don't stare.
I know why my mum said don't stare, but that was like when I was 4. Now I know why.
Play number 7. A woman stands near the revolving door of an office block in Holborn, London, sandwich in hand. She speaks into a mobile phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah. Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah? Yes. Yes, yes, yes!
Riding through the city on my bike all day, cause the filth took away my license. It doesn't get me down and I feel okay, cause the sights that I'm seeing are priceless. Everything seems to look as it should, but I wonder what goes on behind doors. Some people talking to their mates in the club, then I see some guys in a turf war. You, my love, you, my friend, walking around London town. Sun is in the sky, oh why would I wanna be anywhere else? Sun is in the sky, oh why would I wanna be anywhere else? When you look with your eyes, everything seems nice. But if you look twice, you can see it's all lies. A little
On a yearly basis, nearly 200,000 people move from elsewhere in the UK to London. Raymond Lunn, on arriving from Leeds.
Eventually, the doors opened and they let in 5 at a time. By that point, I didn't want to go in, but I was told that they could point me in the right direction of getting accommodation or assistance. So I went in, and it was cavernous, painted drab colours, and there seemed to be these little corridors going in all sorts of different places. I just followed it round, and that's where the servery was. I think I got 3 sausages, 4 bacon, 2 eggs, tomatoes and beans for about £1.50. It was brilliant. But the staff seemed to treat the clients like school children. Keep in line, don't do this, don't do that. They'd obviously been through it every day. But for me, it was demeaning. When I told them that I wasn't an alcoholic, I wasn't a drug addict, and I didn't have any substance abuse or anything, it was like they didn't want to know. I'm homeless, but I'm not eligible for their help because I don't have any support issues. So that was the first drop, the first hit in the stomach. I then got a tube up to Camden Town. I went up there to look for a place where I could get onto the internet. I have a Twitter account, a Facebook account, so I had all sorts of different connections with organisations what could possibly help. I found a Wetherspoons pub near Camden Lock, so I got myself a pint of cider and tried to forget about the stress and worry of the morning and become optimistic again. I got online, started typing on Twitter what was going on. I had all sorts of different ex-offender organisations watching me on Twitter, so I put it on Twitter. I'm homeless, but not got an alcohol problem or drug problem. Nobody's willing to help me, blah, blah, blah. I rang some organisations and I got the same response. Because I had no needs as such, other than needing housing, nobody was prepared to help. And I became angry, I did. And then out of the blue I got saved via Twitter. An organisation based in Camberwell, South London, were watching my tweets. And they said, come in the following day and we'll do an assessment and see if we can help you. I was absolutely over the moon. I knew it was very likely I would be sleeping on the street that night, but that didn't bother me too much. I had plenty of warm clothing. I was walking round Oxford Circus for a bit when it started getting late, and I came across Cavendish Square. I climbed over the fence and found a fountain with benches round it. Well, there were another 2 people on the benches. They never said anything. I never spoke to them, and I got myself onto a bench opposite them. We couldn't see each other because of the fountain. I thought that was quite good, and I was knackered. My backpack had everything in it, so it was heavy. I'd been walking around all day. I was just grateful for getting the backpack off my back and my boots off and giving my feet some air. There were beautiful buildings around the square. Typical London. Large turn-of-the-century buildings, some modern, some not. But it was quiet because there were no bars or pubs or anything. Occasionally, you'd hear a van or a car or whatever. And then I heard these little rattling sounds. It was all the little mice going up to the fountain and the bins to the side. I was grateful that it was mice and not rats. I ain't got a problem with mice.
Play number 5. A father takes off his daughter's football boots in a park in South London.
Hey, Dad.
Yes, Lucy?
I'm tired.
Nice to meet you, tired. I'm Dad.
It's not even funny. The jokes aren't even that funny, Dad. Hey, Dad.
Yes, Lucy?
What was the score?
It was just a kickabout, really.
But what was the score?
Probably about 5-5.
But last goal wins, Dad.
Last goal wins, in a way.
And they scored.
But your side was passing well.
That doesn't matter.
You passed it up to Sam like you were Paul Gascoigne.
Like I was who?
An old-time footballer. Who tied this knot on your shoe?
Sam's dad. He tied his knots. Did you hear him yelling?
Yes, I heard Sam's dad.
Yelling at Sam?
Yes, I heard him.
Me and Sam were celebrating our goal celebrations before the game. And Sam, you seen his new boots?
I saw them.
When he scores, he takes his shirt right off and starts waving it. But I'm going to do like a slide on my knees. What was yours?
I don't think we practiced our celebrations.
Why not?
We mostly practiced our passing. Football was a bit different back then.
Well, Sam says that if you're good when you're 15, you get paid 15 million. And you get paid 16 million if you're good when you're 16. And that's not even the premiership.
He could buy his father a megaphone with that much.
But not if we keep losing.
It was just a kickabout.
I still don't like it.
Give me your other boot.
You never lose, Dad.
Oh, I have. Once or twice.
I've never seen you lose.
Give it a few years. You might. You tie these too tight. I'll cut them and buy you new laces.
Or maybe some new boots. That's what I need. Dad?
Getting around the city. Noel, the driving instructor.
I love roundabouts. I absolutely think they're the best invention. And I don't care who invented the pen, the biro, whoever invented the roundabout. They should be up there on that plinth they've got going on in Trafalgar Square. You can have a little bit of fun with it. You know, will I go? Will I not go? The other car might go in my lane. There's a bit of a dance going on. It's like a samba. Because in this city, sometimes you just come to a sudden gridlock and you think, well, I'm waiting for him. He's waiting for me. He's waiting for him. And you've got everyone looking at everyone. Who will make the first move? And you begin to move, and he begins to move. And then you stop. And everyone's being really polite. But every day, you get someone who doesn't really care. A young lad, and he doesn't give a monkeys. People are petrified of the Hyde Park roundabout in particular. I love it. And it's a little bit of a challenge sometimes. Because you get people who, not because they're bad drivers, just because they have no idea where they're going. So they come in and they've got their sat-nav or their tom-tom going on, and it's shouting at them to go one way. And they're thinking, no, I think it's over that way. They're not quite sure what to do. So they'll swing back one way and have a look at the tom-tom, and they'll swing back the other way. It's quite hilarious.
Sometimes I get young Bangladeshi women in full hijab. I used to think they were all downtrodden and what a sad life they led. But they get in the car, they're very funny, very witty, very educated, you know. They tell you about what they're going to be doing in the next 20 years. Most of them feel very proud. I had one who was a normal sort of young girl, 18 or so. She looked much younger, very smart. She had a very old-fashioned father, so she was only allowed out twice a fortnight, once to sign on the dole and once to do a lesson with me. Every time we were 4 or 5 minutes late returning home, he used to go mad. So literally her whole life was then through me. She was only supposed to look at Bangladeshi movies. She wasn't allowed to watch anything else. But we had a little chat about EastEnders. I never watched it that much, but you get a grasp and play along with it. As we were driving, she'd ask me, "Did you watch it?" And I'd go, "Yeah, I loved it," because you couldn't say no. And then she'd go on about this and this and this. Anyways, she just disappeared one day. Completely disappeared. I got a phone call about 6 or 7 months later. She'd got married to a hubby who'd come over from Bangladesh. She was pregnant, and they're about to call their child a big long name I couldn't pronounce, but with no O in the middle. It was absolutely fantastic. So there's a little chap in East London, a little Bangladeshi kid, with a proper name, and it's got little no O somewhere in the middle.
Once I had a pupil from Thailand, a young woman, and this chap just whizzed past, blocked the road in front of us, and got out of the car waving a great big knife. I thought I'd better get out of the car and stand between him and the pupil. He was shouting, "I'm going to kill her! I'm going to kill her!" I said, "You can't kill her because she hasn't paid me. If you kill her, then I won't get paid." And he just looked at me and thought, this man's flipping crazy. And he didn't know what to do. I said, "You drive off and I won't call the police." And off he went. It never dawned on me to get his number plate. I wasn't going to call the police. He was what I would call a typical East End boy, and I just think he had a bad day. He was a young lad, driving around with a little knife just in case some learner driver pulls out in front of you, and he thought I was crazy. She thought it was part of driving in London. You know, someone comes out and, no big deal, threatens to kill you.
In the car, you learn so much about people. Once you get started and people relax, it's kind of like being a hairdresser. People tell you stuff. You hear all these wonderful stories about people's lives, and some of them are heartbreaking. Years ago, I was very nosy. I'm not so nosy now, but I still hear you guys. Sometimes I feel that I've had a mental workout. But you learn so much. I get a lot of business from Tottenham, people who are driving illegally, and at some point get to around 40, 50 and think, perhaps I get a license. The trouble is, you can't pick them up from home because people assume they have a license because they've been driving for years, going in and out of the house, and the neighbours see. And then you've got the Australians. They're just like little English people. They never want to go home. They'll say, I want to go back. I hate this country. And then when you say, why not go back? They say, it's a lovely country. I don't want to go back. I want to stay here.
I'll have a nice little drive, listening to Johnny Cash and not stopping at every set of traffic lights. It's real driving when you get out there. So that's what I do. I go up to Epping Forest, drive round the roundabouts.
When you finish the test, or they're gone forever, that's a very weird thing, because you're very close to someone, and you've got to know them really well, and you're not quite sure how to say goodbye.
A Waitrose in North London. A man puts a bottle of red wine into his shopping basket. He speaks into his mobile.
Just landed, standing right at the baggage carousel right now. I don't know, sweetheart. I honestly can't say. You know how long it takes, especially at bloody Heathrow. I could be standing here for hours before any of the suitcases even appear. And I have no idea what the traffic's like getting into town. Of course I do. I've been waiting for months for it too.
He picks up a bottle of wine, considers it, puts it into his basket quietly.
I'll be there as soon as I possibly can. Alright. Oh, I think the first suitcase is coming up. No, it's just stopped. I'm excited too. I can almost taste your kiss. Bye-bye.
Play number 44. A young woman and her parents sit in a restaurant in East London.
You finishing your pizza, Dad? Your father and I will eat when we get home. Fine. Great. I'm so glad this has ruined the afternoon. We're just shaken. Dad, it didn't mean anything. We're not used to being on the underground. It's obviously more than just the underground. Your father got worried. I got worried. With all these bombings, it could happen in any parish. All these bombings. Mum, it was one kid reading a book. A book that said preparation for jihad on the front page. What about it? That woman beside him, completely covered except for the eyes. So what? They weren't together. They were sitting together. Until they got off at different stops. I find that whole outfit sinister. It's a mask. I don't wear a mask in public. So now I'm Boris Johnson's daughter. It's a valid objection to make. Enjoy your marriage to Boris Johnson, Dad. The two of you. You could at least take off your coats. She had anything going to happen at Pizza Express.
We're sorry. We need a problem with the soup.
I know, Dad. I know that.
How are the capers on your pizza?
Fine, Dad.
Do you like capers now?
I guess, sure.
Just because the village pub has pizza right now. They do one with capers. It's all changed. All new. And do you remember the Duncan's daughter? A year younger than you?
She moved back.
She came home. She said it was such a relief to leave the city. All the trouble, like today, to be in her community again. She's very happy.
I'm sure she is.
Very. She asked about you.
I don't really know her.
She was wondering whether you were thinking of leaving the city.
I'm gonna get the bell.
Play number 83. Two homeless men sit in a Christmas shelter in East London.
You think that's bad? One of them here told me that Jesus loves me no matter how I smell.
And how were you smelling last Christmas then?
Not bad. I had a wash before going to the shelter. Hair combed, the lot.
One volunteer says to me last year, "Can you believe the parking around here?"
It's horrible, the suffering here.
And another couldn't get a PlayStation at Woolworths.
How do we sleep at night, Liam?
Have you actually been sleeping?
I meant in the loser sense.
They've got all the old volunteers back, like her over there.
She still looks like John Major.
She rubs your arm and says, "It's okay, you're still worth something."
I thought she'd never stop.
I thought she was going to set my arm on fire.
She was having troubles last year, remember?
Her family were refusing to speak to each other.
You gave her some advice.
For free. I volunteered it, really.
It's hard seeing people with such problems at Christmas.
Heard from our kids this year?
I nearly did. I just reckon they're waiting to call me on Christmas Eve.
Cheaper rates at New Year.
Is that right?
Don't know. Could be.
I'm sure they're just waiting for a bit of news big enough to tell me.
That's got to be it.
When was the last time you last heard from someone?
Well, speaking of John Major...
Sounds about right for me too.
And at least we don't have the problems of this lot.
Apparently the parking round here is horrid, isn't it?
Have you seen the old man at the closed down market, kicking up the papers with his worn out shoes? In his eyes you see no pride, hands held loosely by his side. Yesterday's papers telling yesterday's news. So how can you tell me you're lonely?
Earning one's keep. Ruby, the plumber.
I came to London to go to dancing school. It was the early 80s and I was the first black girl at my college. And I came to London deciding I was going to be a huge star. I remember walking down Oxford Street going, "I'm going to be a huge star. Excuse me, I'm going to be a star. I'm going to be, excuse me, I've arrived." But the funny thing is, after the first week, as I was on the phone crying to my mother, going, "I hate it. Everybody's horrible," because I couldn't cook, didn't know how to do anything. When I lived at home, I used to cook for my family and do Sunday roast and do all that kind of stuff. I'm the youngest of 6. and I came to London and had to do everything myself. I lived on roast chicken and roast potatoes. That's all I could do, because you put it on one plate and put it in the oven and hope for the best. So after a week, please let me come home. And it was like, no, this is what you wanted. You wanted to go to dancing school. And she said, try and stay until half term. If you don't like it after half term, then you can come home. So I stayed, and she was right. I never went home since. I've been singing and performing for 20 odd years. I'm never the romantic lead. I'm always the fat funny girl. So it's always character roles, and I love those roles. I've done my stint of being a slave, I've done my spear carrying. I did Porgy and Bess, and it felt good, because we were all black and we were all there together. But to be a slave, I'm getting too old for that. So I said to my agent, I don't want to be a slave anymore, because it would just make me really unhappy, and I'm done with that. Didn't want to do it. So after I finished Porgy and Bess, I was like, what do I do? Do I do plastering? Shall I be an airline pilot? No. I didn't get quite far on that one. I just thought I'd look great in epaulets. Trolley doll. I thought, nah, I'm not that patient with the tea. And dealing with horrible people? I do that anyway. Then I found this plumbing course, and it really suited what I needed.
There's no female plumbers. There's absolutely no female plumbers. When we talk about it, everyone wants a female plumber. I prefer to have a woman stumping through my house rather than a guy stumping through my house. Everywhere I go, I wonder how their plumbing is in their kitchen, and I look to see what their plumbing is. Then I figure out whether I could have done it neater and hidden those pipes a bit better. Because the whole idea of plumbing is that it's available, it's there, but you can't see it. And it needs to be neat and clean and tidy. That's why I think women are better plumbers than men. I prefer to work with others, but I've got used to being on my own. I take my radio, I listen to Radio 7, which always surprises people because I say, do you mind if I put my radio on? And they go, what are you going to put on? Thinking high energy. Boom, boom, boom. And I go, Radio 7, it's got great plays. And they go, oh, okay.
Getting around London. Nikki, the taxi driver.
I rode around on a little moped every day. Still I got the marks on my bum. Some people are totally incapable of doing it, but most people can. You just have to force it until eventually the map appears in your head and you can sort of see it. The first 6 months is like a piece of poetry, and then eventually you can get it and you can see other things and other routes as well, so that you can cut across from one to the other. You've really got to give it your attention. It's like a well. You've got to pump it every day. So if you're doing the knowledge and you take a 2-week holiday, you can come back and you've forgotten everything you've done in the last 6 weeks. There were several places that were alien to me. So what I did was I went for a test one day and I just couldn't figure this one out at all. The guy asked me one of these places, so I went through and I picked out all these runs that I thought were a bit alien to me, mainly in South East London, places like that. And I used to keep practicing. I bought myself a tape recorder, and every day I used to record them runs into the tape recorder and listen to them. Every day. I know that sounds a bit hard to believe, but it's true. I'd memorise them, because then after you've done the run, you write it down in a book, all the streets. And then after I'd been doing it for about 6 or 7 months, I thought, I can't clear these ones. These ones I'm a bit unsure about. So I made a point of learning those like a piece of poetry and doing them every day until I was confident that I could do them.
Peter and Milan, a couple who met on Parliament Hill.
London can be a horrible place if you're alone. I came here 12 years ago and started with a small company, so I didn't meet anyone through work. But then I took a walk, and there he was.
It was 3:30 p.m, August 14. 10 years ago on Parliament Hill. I was walking the dog when I saw him in the distance. I made eye contact and smiled.
After the smile, I was so gobsmacked I said hello. He was just wearing a pair of shorts. No shirt.
We both walked on, stopped, looked back, and then walked towards each other.
Some people meet their prince on a horse. Mine came with a dog.
When I get to Warwick Avenue, meet me by the entrance of the tube. We can talk things over a little time. Promise me you won't step out of line. When I get to Warwick Avenue, please drop the past and be true. Don't think we're okay just because I'm here. You hurt me bad, but I won't shed a tear. I'm leaving you for the last time, baby. You think you're loving, but you don't love me. I've been confused out of my mind lately. You think you're loving, but I want to be free. Baby, you've hurt me.
There will now be a short interval. Get yourself a drink, or even an ice cream. Follow the link for part 2 when you're ready.